Welcome to the Celestic Intelligence Podcast channel on YouTube. My name is Amelie, and I am hosting another piece of the Digital Age series. It seems like every time I got to like 45 minutes, it would time out. So I did the unthinkable. I updated the software. So hopefully, whatever the system update is, what is that called? Updating the, I think it's just software. So I got the newest software, updated everything. Let's hope it all works out. Um, so yesterday, I went live not only on my podcast, but onto the series because I wanted to talk about the discovery that I've made of this synthetic nervous system that is being created. So I often talk about how the Wi-Fi of our bodies is the central nervous system. It's like the beacon that's sending out signals to others. That's how synchronicities happen. I don't know if they quite have an explanation for quantum. Mike, there you are. So grateful to have you. I was like, I don't know if he'll know I'm coming on or not, but hopefully. But yesterday I was trying to, go through all of this information and really just align a lot of the information that I was finding, not just in this tech area, but of what materials are being used. So there's the thing called paramagnetic soil and or stone and diamagnetic soil. And I listen to Biocharisma. Encourage you guys to go over and I'll probably do an at so that you guys can get a link to that channel. But Topher over there talks a lot about soils and the magnetism of the soil. So paramagnetic earth is stuff that receives. So think of it as the magnet part that's pulling everything into it. And then the diamagnetic side is the part that pushes everything away. So, you know me, I'm like, okay, I'm learning about all of this wearable gear of how, wearables are going to be the next. They're going to be replacing all these periphery devices like headsets and mice, keyboards, and any other devices that you would, tie into a laptop, computer, handheld device like a tablet or a smartphone. What are they using as material in these devices? And are they paramagnetic or diamagnetic? So I had a pretty fun time yesterday with my research, but so rare earth elements are often known as REEs, or we can call them, I'll just call them REEs in today's podcast. But there's 17 official ones, and I'm not going to be able to say most of these because they're all in Latin, and I might do it pretty terribly. But there's 17 official rare earth elements, REEs, that they use in technology. And so each one holds different quantum behaviors in them, okay? And the quantum behavior that they have is most of these are paramagnetic that are used in our devices. So I have an iPad here. It's using some multiple forms of these magnetic properties, all right? The paramagnetic properties. So there's strong ones, there's weak ones, which is why you should not hold these devices to your head. So one of them that make the lens here, that's actually a rare earth element. And that rare earth element is, let me see if I can find it, the camera lenses. So lanthanum, or La on the elements table. So that is being used. There's a praseodymium, which is what's used to make magnets and also camera lenses. So that is also being used in that. And these are still weakly attracted to the magnetic field. So they're attracting that to it. So the tech driving rizz that are being used right now in our devices are mostly paramagnetic, meaning that they're pulling in that magnetic energy towards it. So they align with the fields and then they amplify it. So think about the speaker on your device. Let's say it's not broken like mine because I always drop my phone in water, but that the it takes information in. So when you have your little speaker, it's able to amplify it to be very, very loud. And phones of yesteryear, they weren't as powerful as they are now. Like some of the Bluetooth speakers, they're able to like hone in on whatever device that can connect to it wirelessly with Bluetooth technology. It's able to have a very loud, potent sound, even though it's like maybe a device, it could be really, really small, or, the JBLs are usually this big, maybe about the size of like a shaving cream can. And it still holds this really loud sound that it can amplify. And that's because it's using rizz, or rare earth elements, to pull that in, because it's pulling in that information, the vibration of the sound, and then it's able to amplify it, okay? So these rizz are being used to engineer some pretty strong magnetic properties that's able to do some pretty amazing things. So even your smartphone speaker, if you have a smartphone, it can be very, very powerful and loud, just as much as my iPad or even a laptop can still be rather loud. And then televisions as well do that. So as I'm looking at these rizz, I'm also thinking environmentally, what is the impact here? Because the story I was sharing yesterday of Neo in that pod in the Matrix, where he's like being basically unplugged from the Matrix, and he's in that pod and it has goo in it, and he's all like, attached with all kinds of devices on him. I was I'm really looking at, okay, when he was coming out of that, he was like looking around. There were all these sentinel things like flying around and monitoring all of these pods, these battery pods that contained humans. So humans were being mined, like battery powered, because they were all plugged into all this stuff. So they were powering this matrix. But then when it pulls out to it, there's no blue sky. It's all like smoggy and hazy. And so instead of being in the outside world, everyone is plugged in, kind of like in Wall-E, where everybody's, kind of just like hanging out and just looking at these screens. Instead of looking at screens, they're all plugged into these pods and then operating inside of whatever the matrix was. So I wanted to know, like, the rare earth elements, what are they mining? What are the magnetic properties of them? And then where and how are they mined? So China is responsible for 60 to 70% of the global reproduction, REE production, not reproduction as in making babies, but REE production, and that's over in Mongolia, which is the largest mine for that. In the US, the Mountain Pass mine in California produces some REEs, but all of the REEs that are mined in, or rizz that are mined in California or in the USA, are all sent to China for processing. And then other countries are Australia, Myanmar, Russia, India, and Greenland. There are other significant sources of these rare earth elements. And how they're mined is these extraction processes. So they're not necessarily rare, but they're dispersed in these low concentrations. So in order to isolate the elements that they need, it's processed with a lot of acids and solvents, and that is what helps to separate the REEs. And so what is produced on the other side is extremely toxic waste, often radioactive because of the thorium and uranium that are present in the processing of those rare earth elements. And then they're turned into either oxides or metals or magnets, and that's kind of the extraction process. Then finally, I wanted to know, like, what is the environmental impact on this? So you have these huge ponds of toxic sludge or acid sludge. You have radiation hazards, and then it's often mined in areas that have poor labor protection. So if you think about the countries that I just mentioned, aside from the USA and possibly Australia, there's pretty loose environmental regulations in these other countries. I was thinking about it last night. I'm like, I'm gonna have to go into my computer and see if, I hope it's on this computer that I have and not on my old computer. But I wrote a paper on the electric batteries that are required for all of these electric cars. Everyone's like, oh yeah, electric cars, they're great. They're, environmentally friendly. And so, everyone's associated these electric cars because it's not, it's not the fossil fuels, which is allegedly, it's not made out of fossil fuels or gasoline or diesel. It's made, we're using this clean form of energy that is, you're able to recharge the battery. But to mine the resources to put into that battery, this was my whole argument of like, there's some safety issues on these vehicles, these electric vehicles. People don't think about the disposal of those batteries and how they dispose of them and the importance of that on an environmental impact, okay? So, in learning about all these rare earth elements, one of the other things that I'm looking at is obviously the nervous system parallel. If these technologies, if these wearable brain brain BCIs or the neurotechnology is wearable, how are they able to non-invasively access? Mike, I mean, that's really a good insight. But I'm thinking like, how are they accessing the thoughts, the emotions, the intentions, the whatever they're accessing? How are they accessing that? Like it has to be tied into our nervous system because that's the functions that it's looking for. So, what I found is that the same elements that respond to these magnetic fields, the paramagnetic rizz, are basically the backbone that goes into our technology devices. So all of these devices are holding these rare earth elements in them in some shape or form, which I think is why if you read your terms and conditions and the warning on using your phone, it says not to put it directly up to your head. Please don't do that. Like it's going to distort you. And there's a lot of people, highly sensitive people, that can feel the energy that's being pushed out and they're pulling in. Some people are more responsive than others. So these are now the backbone of these technologies, and it's design that is being designed to interface with the human mind, the cognitive mind. Okay. So Mike said, but they use fossil and coal to make the electricity to power the batteries, so not so clean. Yeah, I mean, here in my neck of the woods, there's a lot of people that have. Hi, DeBandit. Good to see you. There's a lot of people that have solar panels on their homes, so a lot of their homes are being, they're using whatever solar energy that they can get. So solar energy is a thing. Wind power is a thing. So we've got a lot of wind turbines out here, and not in where I'm at, but in the gorge and in the high desert, they have those wind turbines out there. And then most of the energy that we have here is hydro energy. So we have dams that power our cities. So we're really reliant on the flow of water to come through. So it depends on what part of the country you are in. The interesting thing is I found that nuclear power is being looked at as a responsible way to conduct power, to power all of this AI technology, which is, I think is a little bit safer than some of these other methods. Although still, to get the rare earth elements that are needed to make the devices, there's still this strip mining that is going on, and kind of a big environmental impact, even though it isn't necessarily here in America. All these other countries are building these devices for this country, for this country's consumerism. Um, so, what does this mean? Like, the parallel here is that essentially what is happening is that there is a synthetic nervous system that is being built through this technology that is capable of entering the nervous system, which is, this frontal cortex is very important to the nervous system, out of these paramagnetic, essentially earth bones. And we're going down we're on a trip today. So usually I would do this on Instagram, just have my little journey, but Instagram won't let me go live anymore because I think I violated some community standards a time or two. But well, whatever. I can post videos there. It's still good. But okay, so I wanted to know if I'm recognizing this, then is anybody else talking about this, or is this something that I'm just like stumbling upon? And I don't know that there's many people that are talking about this. So most of the conversations that you're going to find on rare earth elements are typically going to be geopolitical discussions, how China controls the supply chain, green technology. We need REEs for electronic vehicles, wind turbines, and solar energy. So these green techs are doing all of this acid sludge in order to make their technology. Oh, it is it? Ugh. I was hoping that it would like be okay, but maybe I need to turn my phone off tonight just to like let it reset or something. Um, so green technology is relying on these wind turbines and these solar turbines and electric cars and calling it green when really like the process of making this green energy, keep the gravy flowing. All right, I'll see you in a bit, to bandit. Keep the energy, to keep the green technology going, we need these rare earth elements in order to get them. And I just discussed how the environmental impact of those, that technology, of what it's requiring. And Mike even brought up that the fossil fuels, the fossil and the coal are still required to to power the electricity as well. So we have kind of this huge conflict. Okay. The other thing is there's a little bit of market scarcity of rare because these it's just these different segments of the countries that are able to get those materials. So there can be a play into the market scarcity. Obviously, China owns a lot of that, but some of these other countries that I was mentioning too, if there's a lot of demand, the prices are going to go up. So the price of your iPhone, your other devices are going to go up as well. Whatever is requiring these rare earth elements. And then the environmental concern that is also discussed, which we had already mentioned, is just mining is a toxic situation. But something that's never really openly discussed is the fact that the paramagnetic nature of these elements makes them this like building material to make this synthetic nervous system technology in this technology. Okay. And so the other thing that is very rarely discussed is that we're using the Earth's magnetic responders to craft machines that mirror the human nerve connection or conduction and thought patterns. Don't worry, we're going to get even further into this if YouTube lets me. Okay. Let's go. This is not necessarily about resources, but where the energetic architecture is being built. Okay. So, the energetic architecture, this building of this nervous system that can align, amplify, and interface with the human biofield. So, the human biofield is just all around your body, but they're really focusing on the brain part here. They're using these resources, the rizz, the rare earth elements, as a way to really align, amplify, and interface with your human body. That's the way that these neural interfaces are going to be working. So the the takeaway here is I don't know if we're not just outright saying it or if there's somebody saying it and I'm just not finding it, but that this synthetic nervous system is being built in these devices, and there's this huge big tech arms race, I'm going to say, to create what is going to be the next McAfee antivirus or Windows 95 or iPhone or these first big like Google, these first big names that come out like Band-Aid or Kleenex, the first big brand names to be the first ones to enter into this market because it's a huge profitable market. We're talking about $1 trillion industry of replacing all of these peripheral devices and even obsoleting the laptop or the home computer from what it is now into these not even touchables. It's just, it will respond to your hand because your hand is going to be able to monitor the screen or to be able to interact with the screen, or even your thoughts are going to be able to interact with the screen or the device because it's going to be connected into your thoughts. I often think, is that what Stephen Hawking was on? I don't know. Like, how was he using that device that he was using in order to speak? But it's almost as if this narrative of deliberately building, I don't know if it's because it's unknowingly or if it's because they're knowingly doing it and just kind of doing it out in the open. I was just going to mention him. I know. I was like, oh, that guy. Um, but it's almost like it's a deliberate discussion of the technical or this economic issue instead of like outright saying we're building a synthetic nervous system that can interact with your nervous system as a human. Because I think in saying that, and maybe, YouTube doesn't much like it, or maybe the energy that I'm sharing right now is just not ready for most of the public, is a huge question. So, it's more of a narrative of we need neodymium for EV motors, so electric vehicle motors. We need to get this rare earth element to make those motors. So instead of saying we're building this magnetic skeleton that can resonate with your own human biofield, namely your nervous system activity, whatever your biofield's neural activity is, we're interacting with it. We're interfacing it with it. We're building this system that is able to connect with you. And I use the term skeleton for a reason, and we're going to get into that a little bit. So even neuroscience and brain computer interface literature, the conversation is biological to machine. Okay? It's not what I'm saying. It's not elemental. You're building the framework of this elemental to tap into the biological human, to make the machine work, because that's the bridge. You still have to have the foundation in order to interact with the human, because a human and a technology, they're still interacting, but you can't skip the piece of where the elements, this earth element, is added into it. So this is my brain. Do you guys remember in the 90s when it was like, this is your brain, and then this is your brain on drugs? It was a Dare commercial, and it was like a cast iron pan, and they threw an egg into it, and the egg was frying. It's like, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. Well, this is my brain, and this is the nerdy things that it thinks about when left to its own devices. Okay. So what I'm noticing here and what I'm trying to share with you is that there's this invisible nervous system blueprint, okay, that's running through everything. And I say this from not just my perspective. So cool. You remember that? So cool. It was like the after school, one of the after school, what do they call them? Public announcements. But, the fact that this invisible nervous system blueprint is just being talked about on Celestic Intelligence, on some sort of digital age investigation, and not in mainstream science, media, or any other industries is pretty crazy. Or the briefcase full of drugs. Yeah. I got a briefcase full of nervous system blueprint information. This is my life. Okay. So naturally, I'm like, okay, let's keep going. What kind of rare earth elements are in the human skeleton, or even in just bones, let's say? Okay. So looking at the biology, looking at the geochemistry of the skeletal system, and the magnetism, because we have this energy in our bodies, whether you want to admit to it or not. Like, we have energy in our fields. Like, we can sense when people are feeling down, just like the brain computer interface software is going to do as well. It's not that it's doing anything novel, even if they try to say that, oh yeah, this is very novel. No, it's not. Like, human bodies can already do that. And we don't need to wear anything. We could be butt naked and still be able to sense people's feelings around us. In fact, If people are lacking self awareness, we find it weird of why is that person behaving that way to me? Don't they know how their whatever behavior is, how that's making that, how that could make me feel? Okay. So the basic human skeleton is primarily made of hydroxyapatite, which is basically a calcium phosphate crystal. Okay. Our skeleton is made out of crystals, calcium phosphate crystals. Okay. So if you're not vibing, chances are you might be low on some calcium or some phosphate. Let's get some bioavailable material. If you don't put calcium in your soil and in your for your tomatoes, you get blossom end rot. Like if you've ever had a garden and you've ever had some, had it go down with the garden, I've had blossom and rot, and I had to learn, like, oh my gosh, I should have put calcium in the soil, some oyster shells or bone meal or something like that. It needs to go into the soil because my my tomatoes need calcium so that they don't get blossom end rot and I don't lose my harvest. Well, your human skeleton is made out of that. Okay, it's a crystal. Your bones are crystals. This is tripping me out because I'm like, dude, the catacombs and the fact we'll get into it in a little bit. Okay, so the other basic is this is a mineral framework that naturally attracts and incorporates these trace elements that we need from the environment. Okay, so if you're not putting a good salt into your water, I'm using some gray salt. What kind is it? I tried to get the submarine salt. Submarine salt sounded cool, but I got this light gray salt, and I like to use Redmond's. It's like salt from Salt Lake City area, and it has like this red, basically kind of clay-like substance in it. That's called Redmond's. I like to use that, or some people use Himalayan pink salt. You can use Hawaiian salt. That salt crystal like unless it's like the iodized white stuff, you want to get the stuff that has a little bit of trace minerals in it because it's going to replace any trace minerals that your body may shut out. So you need to have those trace minerals so that your body is able to use that. Okay? But the mineral framework in your skeletal system is what is attracting that in. So it's able to take those trace elements if you're drinking it and you're drinking water. I think some places, obviously you figure out your own diet, but if you want to add trace minerals, that's the quickest and easiest way is just a little pinch of salt into your water in the morning, and that gets, replenishes whatever is lost. All right. So scientists have found that rare earth elements, or REs, do in fact accumulate in the human bone, although it's in trace amounts. So just like the salt that you're getting from, the light gray salt that I get, I wish I could remember. I think it's like Celtic salt or something. I'm not gonna go get the bag, but the that crystal is like bringing in all, like these salt crystals are bringing in all of the trace elements from wherever it's being harvested from. Just like your bones are doing the same thing. So your bones are like bringing that in. So that mineral, that calcium phosphate crystal that makes up your bones is actually helping to bring in those trace elements that you need. So so the REs that are found in our bone tissue, okay, this is what was detected in studies, that lanthanum, which is used therapeutically to bind phosphate in dialysis patients and replaces calcium in bone crystal. So you got to have that if you're going to be replacing lost calcium. You got to have that lanthanum. They've also detected cerium, which is a can substitute substitute for calcium, so that can happen as well. Um, Neodymium is detectable in human skeletons that are near mining areas. So if you think about all the lead miners and the fact that our bones can are like bringing things in, all those lead miners that even just being around it, they were getting that lead was probably seeping into their bones or seeping into their bodies because their bones are like crystals and it's like attracting that into their bodies. So it's detectable in the skeletons near the mining areas. And then samarium, europium, gadolinium, dysprosium, uh, ytterbium, and those are all trace bone. They were found in all trace bone samples in environments where exposure was high. So if you're mining these rees in these third world countries, chances are you're likely taking in a little bit more of those, and whatever the overexposure of that is can harm you. Okay, but the um, but these prefer bone because that calcium phosphate has that crystal lattice, and so it helps to accept those rare earth elements in place of calcium. So if you're losing calcium, these rare earth elements are going to go in and replace those lattices that are missing that calcium with those rare earth elements. Um, so lead or strontium can also lodge in bones in similar fashion. Okay. So the magnetic nature inside of our skeleton is most rees are incorporated into the bone are paramagnetic, so they're being attracted to that bone, and the skeleton itself holds these tiny latent magnetic responders, and even not enough to be magnetic bones, but it just shows that our skeletal system that's made up is basically a living mineral antenna where it's like pulling all of this rare earth paramagnetic substance into our bodies. So why does this matter? Why does this matter? Dude, the skeleton right now, I'm totally tripped out. I'm like having these, it's just crazy. Okay. But why it matters, our skeleton is a long wave memory storage. So in indigenous tribes, so I'm not a part of any of the bone people, but there are certain tribes that are named after like bone people. Just like, in my tribe, one of them is a fire keeper, one of them is a fire keeper, and then you've got my other one is a sky people. And so these indigenous tribes had different responsibilities that they were to look after, and so some of them had bones. Now bones are considered area of memory storage, so it has this ancestral memory storage. Okay, they hold isotopes of where people live. So it got me even to thinking, like, if you're traversing across, like, I like to travel, and there's certain places that I like to go relax. I'd like to go to Kona, on the big island in Hawaii. It's one of my favorite places to go. And the paramagnetic earth that's there, because it's, a lot of coral, it's a lot of sand, a lot of lava, or obsidian, or just, that volcanic debris. It holds this certain feeling. So it actually helps me to relax quite a bit. And that's why a lot of people will go to the beach to relax. And it's because the soil there, and I learned this from Biocharisma, which is on YouTube. Topher talks about it. But the soil or the earth makeup of where you're at holds a lot of magnetic. It could be paramagnetic or diamagnetic. So that expansion or, the retraction is you're feeling it in that area. So if you travel, like when I traveled across the country, there's certain areas where I felt differently just from being in a different environment. So your environment is your bones are carrying the isotopes of whatever environment you're in. I live in a very volcanic area here in the Pacific Northwest. We've got all different kinds of soils going on out here, but we still have these giant mountains that are active. Some of them are active volcanoes, and or they might be dormant volcanoes, but there's still like activity going on around us. So the skeleton holds these long wave memory storages, especially of places where ancestral ancestry has lived. So you might have an affinity for Ireland because you have an Irish background, and when you go there, you're like, oh my gosh, it's just, you have a certain experience because you're in that area. I often go to the reservation, and there's a certain resonance that occurs because a lot of the bones are buried. So I went to go visit the Yellow Calf Graveyard cemetery to go visit my father, and to give honor to the bones that are laid there. So that the bones that remain, they hold these memories in it. If rizz sit inside that mineral memory, then the bones, then human bones are already rare earth composites. And they're natural. They're not like these handheld devices or computers or whatever that use rare earth composites, but your bones are holding the rare earth composites already. So it's just this natural way of holding it, but functionally similar to how we use rizz in hard drives or magnets or memory devices or even in electronic vehicles. So they're just being used and manipulated in a different way, but they're still functioning in a similar fashion to the way that skeleton or bones do. So if you really think about it, because I think about the ancestral piece of this always, it's that our bones, our bodies were basically already built with these building blocks that are currently being used to manufacture this synthetic nervous system. And that's the gravy. That's so crazy. Like, is anybody else talking about this? I want to know. I want to talk to those people. Like, really, what's going on here? So really what's going on is I did a Substack article on it, and essentially what's happening is like they're not creating anything new by building these brain computer interface devices. What they're doing is they're mimicking our human intelligence that we already have. Like the skeleton has a story, our blood has a story, our cognitive minds have a story. Like there's reasons why everything functions in the way that it functions, and so they're not creating anything new. They're just mimicking the human body in this technology, and that's something that people are talking about. I'm just getting really specific on the central nervous system that we have is being mimicked into this synthetic nervous system, a silicone nervous system that is AI, but it's going to require, they want the data in here. It's valuable. Okay. Oof. So we've covered that our bones are these mineral record keepers. It holds personal stories, ancestral stories, an environmental memory of places that it's been or lived. And then we've covered rare earth elements in our skeleton, which are naturally acting as this magnetic responder to, the environment, to others, the elements and everything like that. We're magnetic responders here. We're energy beings. And the tech that is being built from this rare earth mineral, or these rare earth elements, is mimicking the same storage and response systems. Okay. So our memory is it's there. Our memory, we have a short and long term memory, and it's able to, like, they don't even think that there's any limit to what you can remember. There's no limit to any long term memory. Now, short term memory is different, but long term memory, there's no limit to how much you can remember. And I don't know. I don't know if it's stored in the bones, you guys. It's where it's where my brain is like, is this a thing? Am I treading into deep water over here? Do I have to swim now? I'm ready to go. Um, but this isn't just biology, our biological system trying to connect to this technological system. Like, there's this binding piece of the elements that need to connect those two. And that's the rare earth element. So when they put it into the electronic vehicles, when they put it into our devices, when they put it into the TVs, wherever else it's at, that's being used to, like, basically amplify the stuff. And I don't know how 5G works. I might have to, like, look into that a little bit, but all of the all of the G's, like, let's really, like, dive a little deeper into that. I know that there's a lot of experts out there, and that's not a surprising thing. But when we look at just the natural human intelligence that's part of our system, that's part of our body intelligence, that's part of our mental and emotional intelligence here. That's where we're like, okay, now what's really going on? What are we connecting into? And the connection piece is this rare earth element, I think, until I'm wrong. All right, so tech isn't necessarily innovating from nothing. I think it's mimicking intelligent design, human intelligent design. Whatever, however we're made up of, it's doing that. Hi, Tim. Very interesting. What do you think the intentional atmospheric distributions we see over our heads are related to this as well? Oh, do you think the intentional atmospheric distributions we see over our heads are related to this as well? Possibly. I'm gonna have to look at the materials that they're spraying, but yeah. Um, let's see, because these are rare earth. I kind of went over some of them. I don't think any of. I'll have to look at the materials that are being sprayed and compare them to the rare earth elements in tech. So there's only 17 that are in technology, but that doesn't mean that those other ones, I think, like barium, aluminum, were being sprayed. I think that those also have some form of interaction as well. But I'm just looking at the devices that we hold every day and then our human bodies right now. That's kind of where we're at. But thanks for joining. It's good to see you. Okay, where are we here? So I think that it's just mimicking the intelligent design, and that's always what it's done. So when the computer was created and it was computing at these high speeds, it actually advanced studies in how our bodies operate, how our brain operates. So it opened up a lot of, like, them being able to replicate the computing function of a brain. That helped out a lot. Sorry, I have a hair in my face. That actually helped to discover a lot more about the brain. And then, with other things like where languages or whatever is, sometimes they just had actual case studies. So, like, a human would get, a thing lodged into their head and it would affect a certain part of the brain, and they're still functioning, but maybe they noticed, like, okay, now this part of their cognitive function is not working as well. So now, based on where this went into their head, we can tell that it affects this language function, or we can tell that it affects their emotional regulation, or whatever it is. They were able to detect a lot of that stuff. And now, because of all of the even deeper studies and more scientists out there that are researching psychologically and also just the cognition of what functions are going on in our brains, and the advancements of like the CAT scan and the MRI and all that kind of stuff, it helps them to understand a lot deeper and faster what is going on. And so the more that they uncover of how the cognitive function works, the better they're able to develop the technology, because it's operating on this similar, in a similar interface. So if you look at the map of all of your neurons, there's 100 million, billion, I don't know how many neurons in your body that are firing off synapses at a pretty rapid rate. But now this technology is also able to do that. And if you look at a schematic of, a technology, if you've ever worked on a car or anything like that, particularly the electrical chassis elements of a blueprint, or, how things are put together, you'll see, like, it's just as powerful, but it also needs to have a lot of connection. It needs to make sense and map out correctly, just like the neurons need to do in your own cognitive. Yeah, chemtrails. You're so smart, Mike. You got it. Okay. So AI, data storage, and neural nets, they're just echoes of how we already store, process, and respond biologically. It's just a copy. Think of it like the biology and then the technology, and like in between, there's this connective element of the rare earth elements. All right. So, in externalizing a mimic of this intelligence into these devices and these systems, the culture is starting to forget how it embodies it. And that's where, like, my voice is coming in and kind of shouting from my little soapbox here in the corner of the internet. And that's totally fine, totally okay. But the culture is forgetting that we embody it. So I'm here just saying, I'm not bringing in anything new. I'm bringing something in that's always been here. Is that all of this stuff that we think is fearful is actually just our bodies externally mimicked into these, technological systems. So there really isn't anything to forget, because we're, like, the more that I look into this, the more I'm like, dude, we're so intelligently designed. We're incredible beings. Like, how amazing is this? Okay. So, novelty really with this technology is a mirage. It's when I see individuals calling this technology a novelty, I get really, it's kind of an insult to like how amazingly advanced our human biological systems are. Yeah, there's like a little bit of weakness to it, but there's also this really deep, fascinating technology that we are made with that I can just give birth to one. Two. I gave birth to two of these beings that are incredible. Like, it's miraculous the way that our bodies function. It's miraculous. And it's mimicked in the technology because we matter. We are the ones that are the advanced. Okay? It's not advanced technology, it's advanced humans. And once we realize like how amazing and how advanced our human technology is, like it's really cool. Okay. Um so from just this indigenous perspective, also just kind of doing a wrap up, the indigenous cultures, certain ones of them understood this, that bones are story keepers. The stones have memory. Go into an old building, okay? I've been watching this show, Emily in Paris and whatever, but I like it makes me want to go to Paris. I want to go experience how amazing the architecture is because those stones that they were built with hold this energetic memory from a time past. But there's like knowledge in it, you know? And the catacombs are just fascinating to me too. I'm like, it's got to feel. I was kind of like looking into it earlier, and I've been in a lot of liminal spaces lately. Liminal is kind of between life and death, right? But the catacombs are placed underneath the city in this liminal space, and there's got to be this vibration in there, this frequency that it's holding that is so incredible that I'm just fascinated by, what kind of information could I be around just being in that liminal space or walking around and seeing these beautiful architecturally designed buildings that were made in, you know, long before I was alive. So they're the stones have these, it's like a memory library. The bones have a memory as well. It's holding these records within your body. And then in indigenous cultures, the elders were looked at as holding the living archives, which is one of the big reasons why I have a really hard time that my uncle passed away and my mom died. Like, how am I to access those living archives? Because now I don't have access to that anymore. Now I have to rely on my bone memories. So the same template is being pulled into this digital, but the thing with it is it can't pull the spirit. There's a certain sapience that makes us even more advanced than the technology, and that's the thing here. Like, I was reading an article from a doctor of neuroscience, and you know her thing is like, oh, these brain computer interfaces are being built, and there's this huge arms race on how to get there, and we have to be really careful because people will need to know that they have right to mental privacy, and so we need to be thinking about the employee mental privacy rights, and all these other things, and being really upfront about what consent we pull from them in order to like interact with their thoughts. I'm like, yeah, like, you guys don't have soul. There's no soul in it. That's what that sapience is. So you have sentience, which is kind of this logical side of it, and then you have sapience, that sapien thing is where, like, that sapien is the wisdom and the spirit, and you know that that's what makes us this amazing human being, Homo sapien, right? Okay. So, I don't know what you guys think of that. I don't know. I think it's really fascinating. Um, I always like to do timelines because I like to look at, where did this come from? Who discovered it? And then when did it become really popular? So, in 1787, the first discovery of a rare earth mineral was gadol, gadolinite, in Ytterby, Sweden. The village gave its name yttrium, terbium, erbium, and yerbium, ytterbium. Sorry. So that was where that first one. It's interesting, right, Mike? Yes. Okay. So then the next REE that is discovered or applied is in 1885. Austrian chemist, I'm going to butcher his name, Karl Ower von Welschbach, Welsbach, isolated neodymium and praseodymium. I totally butchered that. Using them in gas mantles for streetlights. Okay, so streetlights, that was the first um, of humanity harvesting these reeds for modern technology. Then, I was in 1885. Then in the 1960s, that's when this big turning point came. And that's when they started creating Sumerian cobalt magnets, which were invented in US and UK research laboratories. And then reeds were started to be used to powering color TVs. So europium was for its red phosphors. Then in 1982, neodymium and iron boron magnets were developed for General Motors and Sumitomo. And these are the ultra strong magnets that are still used in computers, headphones, electronic vehicle motors, and wind turbines today. And then from the 2000s until now, China dominates the mining and refining global supply. So they do all the processing as well. And so it's those reeds have become central to smartphones, MRI machines, satellites, quantum computers, and AI infrastructure. So those are all being provided by China. 70 to 80% of it is refined there, and then remember 60%, 60 to 70-ish percent is mined there. So 70 to 80% of the global supply of these reeds are coming from China. So reeds, these are all external ways, but reeds are actually, like, first and foremost processed in our bodies. Okay. It's just the last 150 years that humans have been using their magnetic and photonic properties and started mimicking biology's hidden intelligence. All right. Where else do I want to go? Okay, limits. Okay, I've been going for over an hour. You guys want me to keep going? Because I will, if you guys are interested. Okay, Mike's enjoying it. Whatever Mike says, I do. It's really funny. Like, if I go live in the morning, it's like at 11. It's a lot of Indian fellows and Indian people come in, and Like they'll just come on and they'll like be like, "Madam, you're talking to yourself." Like, no, Mike's here. Mike will listen. He listens to all of them. Okay, so I asked, are there people who believe in intelligent design that are talking about this? Because, you know, the I'm thinking about the spiritual and religious intelligent design, because there's an intelligent design versus evolution. Is that the right? I don't know if that's right. But are they talking about this? And really, nobody is really talking about this, about how technology is doing this mimicry of the human biology system. And so I was like, that, there's not really anybody talking about it. Okay. Um, Not that it's not like integrated per se, because like indigenous tribes like recognize that they may not have had the experience with technology and how technology was a mimicry of it. But I just find it really interesting. It's kind of an interesting frontier to think about and consider. Tim's enjoying it. I'll go for you guys. Okay. So a big question that I like to ask is, you know, with the transhumanist agenda, they're they're going for this end game frontier of you either line up and become a cyborg and get on board with this technology, or you're obsolete and weak. You're going to be obsolete. We're going to kick you out. And I just don't think that's ever going to happen. Like, we've been through so much as a human species. um, but we're looking at tracing these lines of bones as these repositories for trace rare earth elements, and also holding the memory of, you know, environments and of experiences ancestrally or even personally in your own life. The Earth's crust is providing these same elements, and technologies, you know, kind of taking from both the biological and the elemental piece in order to build these systems. So we've got this triad of human to earth to machine. And the fact that this is basically invisible, it's kind of a quiet structural build that's going on is pretty interesting. That there's nobody really talking about how deep it goes on this end of it, of the humanity part of it, even though they're saying like, oh, we really need to think about employee rights and human rights, you know, when it comes to mental privacy and us invading it. Well, maybe it's just not a good idea. They're going for it though. And I mentioned yesterday, like, we can be on different timelines. Like, you do not have to, your no is so powerful. Okay. So don't forget that your no is a sacred technology. Okay. So what we think is this new expansion, this new whatever, it's not really new. It's just a mimicry. Even virtual reality, it's just another metaverse, like dreaming. Dreaming is a metaverse that we've been doing for since the beginning of civilization. So Mark Zuckerberg did not create the metaverse. He is creating an external metaverse, but he did not create it. It's always been in our being. Okay, so kind of took some stuff. I just wanted to say that there are some people that aligned with it. So The elemental resonance, the four classical elements, deeper observation reveals a profound truth. The underlying pattern remains changed. This universal pattern is not only present in nature, but also in spiritual realities revealed in the scripture. In talking about kind of these body-based intelligence echoes. And then another theorized magnetite in biological systems, environmental sensing abilities, and influenced migration patterns, cultural development, and spirit beliefs. Kind of speak into this pattern design, but the elemental resonance from technology isn't really being discussed and how it's mimicking our skeletal intelligence. Unless you guys know people, tag me, at me, at Celestic Intelligence. Do it. All right. Oof. So really, the consequence of what's likely to happen. So there's multiple ways of where how this can play out. However, the warning is, if tech truly is this mimicry of our system, then disembodied AI, which we can embody, and we can also be disembodied. But disembodied AI may fracture what God designed as a whole. So, we have these bones, we have this spirit, we're connected to the earth. Like we've got this beautiful connection, this beautiful embodiment that we can have. And a lot of people are fractured and disillusioned and feeling disembodied. And so I'm here calling for people to become embodied, to become their greatest version, like to recognize and remember you are beautifully and wonderfully built. Like our bodily intelligence is amazing. And that's why I named my business Celestic Intelligence, because I knew back 6 months ago, like, this is important. This is important. This needs to be shared. This needs to be talked about. Even if I wasn't really outright with it. I had a little bit of issues with sharing some of this truth. It's heavy. Um, and it's everyone. Is it going to resonate with everybody? Probably not. I'm ahead of my time. That's what the visionaries are. They're ahead of their times. Um, but I'm out here speaking into it so that you guys know that it's not hopeless. It's not just doom and gloom going into the future. That we are here, we're beautifully and wonderfully made, we're intelligently made. There's intelligence that we hold that we don't even know how to access. And I even got into it with, I was asking Valentine, hey, Valentine, was the Garden of Eden like when, Eve bit into that apple and Adam had the apple and then they had all that knowledge? Like it just cracked them? Like it cracked their, like where it just opened everything up and it was so sudden, so powerful, so wild and so crazy that like they basically collapsed and it broke whatever was being held in that garden. That's where my mind goes. Because the garden story is, I mean, everybody knows that garden story. And there's a lot of truth in it. There's a lot of truth in that story. But that's one of them. And I'm like, did they just access all of the knowledge of good and evil and it just shattered their minds? Like they MK Ultra'd themselves basically by eating the apple or the fruit. that's the conspiracy theory I want answers on. That's the conspiracy theory that I think happened. Like that's something. Um, all right. So the invitation, so do we want digital dominion or do we want divine remembrance? Okay? Do we want to be reminded that we're divinely made, that we have access to the divine? Um, like I believe that. That's why I started my business. It's why I started my podcast. Is to share this with you guys, even if it's with like one person. Even if Mike's the only one that's here. Tim, if the Tim's the only one, if you guys are the only ones here that are listening, I don't care. I'm sharing this information. It's going to be shared. It's going to be reverberated. I'm starting ripples right now. Um, so the invitation is recognizing these parallels open a path to reclaim design with reverence, not exploitation. Okay, we're not looking at being exploited here. We don't deserve that. Anytime that we've rose up against exploitation, we've won. Okay? It happened with Pharaoh when Moses said, "Let my people go." He continued to exploit them and eventually they were released. Happened at the cross when Jesus went to the cross and he died. It wasn't exploitation. There was a sacrifice where in reverence to the story that needed to happen, like, sorry, my brain is just like that. You're not exploited. Like, you're not dead. You're living. You're a living man and a living woman, and you're beautifully and wonderfully made. When you say no, it has to be respected. It has to be respected. It's the law of consent. It cannot be violated. It's a universal law. It's not a man made law. The universal law of consent. When you say no, it has to be respected. And yeah, it might feel a little painful in the moment when you say no, and you have to hold into that no. But you get repaid in bounty from holding on to your truth of whatever that yes or no was. By remaining in consent, remaining in your free will, by acknowledging that and not giving away your agency. It's retaining your own sovereignty by saying no. It's like the perfect energy boundary. Just say no. I should say no more often. And I've had to say no to some things and I've been really practicing it. But we're designed we're designed to reclaim our design in reverence. We don't have to be exploited. So instead of saying that AI is God, AI is going to take over, AI and technology, they're inevitable, they're going to happen, there's nothing we can do about it. But I think the real thing that we can say by turning it around is say AI truly just reveals the fingerprint of God, God's fingerprint. We are God's fingerprints. We are the blueprints of all of this AI, all of this technology. It's built around our own intelligent design. That's a claim, but I'm willing to take a, I'm willing to take the L's on that one. So we're not just living in this digital age, okay? We're in this age of intelligent design revealed. We're in an age, the digital age is simply revealing how beautifully and wonderfully made we are. It's intelligent design revealed. But we're not mimic, like, we're made in the image of God, but we're not like mimicked AI. We're just made in the image of God. We're the intelligently designed beings. So the choice here really is, are we going to use tech for good? Are we going to use tech to amplify the reverence of our design? Or are we going to use tech to amplify the overriding of it? Are we just going to say, oh, there's nothing we could do? No. Instead, we can say, you know what? AI is revealing to us how incredible we are, how wonderfully made we are. Just the skeleton story from today, dude, you guys have been reeling over it. My brain is like popping off. Like, there's, if I was on an MRI, I would just be like this big rainbow. Look like somebody was shooting a paintball right into it. Like, that's how crazy this it's been. It's very activating. Very activating. I hope it's exciting for you guys too. Okay, let's see. So, um, in looking at the bones and how important they were, just looking at that, I kind of created this divine toolkit of intelligent design. But we have these building blocks that store memory and frequency. So there's, quartz and minerals that end up being these resonators or energy holders or ancient communication devices. And a lot of people will be like, oh, crystals, oh, that's all new age, that's all this, that's all that, and really dismiss it. But, like, do you say that when you go to the beach? When you go on vacation? Do you call the people that are going on vacation, like, do you tell them that they're like being new agey or witchcrafty? Dude, new age stuff is just rebranded like spiritual things. It's just a rebrand. No, you don't say that when you go to the beach. You go there to relax. Well, why is it relaxing you? It's because it's like all of these minerals and crystals ground up into the sand, and it acts as a resonator that actually helps you to, ground into the sand and take out all of the negative energy that's in your body. It's a fact. I don't think they have that. Um, they had these like auric readers back in the 70s and 80s. I don't know when they got rid of them, but I remember seeing this image. I'm at 10%, so I might have to go soon. But I remember seeing this image of a person. They were on the beach, and you could see this like blue auric field around them, and it was like pretty expanded. And they got rid of that pretty quickly. Um, but just being in certain areas, it has certain resonance, certain frequencies that you can feel. Even the ley lines, like you can go to vortexes in certain ley lines, and you'll feel the different energies from there. If you go into a house or you go into a hospital, like each one is going to have this, it's going to hold this different frequency there. Just like the rare earth elements hold this subtle magnetic frequency within them. And metals also, like gold, if you think about gold, that's like the divine light conductor, right? But silver, it also has a certain resonance. Copper has this resonance where it's bridging energy together. And then iron, which is like that blood and the grounding, like all of these elements they're all needed in our bodies, and they're all a part of our divine toolkit, which is part of our intelligent design. Okay, moving into forces of energy. as we're looking at, some of this matter that's making up. I get so pumped up. Like, I just want to yell when people are like, mind over matter, mind over matter, mind over matter. I'm like, what about matter matters? Like, matter is very important, not mind over matter. Let's think about matter first, and then we can think about the mind, because matter matters. So, the flows that animate the matter is electromagnetism. So, you can think of that as like this cosmic nervous system, that electromagnetism, biofield, sound and vibration. So if you think about sound and just even the vibration of the sound, like even from my voice box, it is holding this certain energy in it. And the word is the creation tool. The word is logos in the Bible. If you translate it, it's logos or logos, however you guys want to say it. Um, my Hawaiian says logos. Uh, but you're using words as creation. So when I come on to this live stream and I'm using the rare earth elements within my iPhone to amplify the message that I'm saying, to send the ripples out, my sound and vibration is a creation tool. I'm creating a movement right now that's going to shift the people that are thinking that this is like we just lie down and die into a voice of hope. We don't have to do that. So it becomes the word, the logos, or a mantra, or the drum beat that is going to shift things in a big way. Other forces of energy are light and fire. So you have this illumination, purification, divine spark. I, since I'm native, burn, I do smudging. And like, there's so many people that are like, oh, that's so, that's witchcraft. That's whatever. But like, I've noticed, and again, Topher at Charisma mentions this, but anytime that you have like, if you take all the dead wood off of your property and you're having a burn pile and you're burning everything, it shifts the energy of it's like a giant outdoor smudge. Or even the fires that we had during 2020 and 2020, was it 2021? Oh, 2020, we had horrible fires. I was living out, it was 10 miles away from my house, was like the closest end of the wildfire in my area. Um, and it was pretty horrific to go through. Like, there was a few days where it was just like orange sky, red sky, and, there's just soot everywhere. And, but I noticed that, it was coming at a time when we were in the pandemic, and it was almost like smudging all of America, or at least the western half. I don't know how far that went, but it was a purification. So that smudging of the wildfires is a purification. So anytime that you're burning anything, you're purifying through fire. And the fire is a spirit representation. And then the final force is the breath. This could be known as ruach, prana, pneuma, but the spirit is carried through respiration. So anytime that you have breath in your body, that is animating the matter within yourself. If you stop breathing, you stop living. Okay. I was looking, Ocean Ramsey, she's the shark girl. She can hold her breath for 6.5 minutes because she wanted to go hang out with the sharks. But she like practiced really hard to teach her body to go for 6.5 minutes underwater, which is pretty amazing. Okay, so biological coding, and then I'll probably end just because I'm at 7%. But we'll get through the rest of these. So the biological codes of the divine toolkit of intelligent design is we have life's embedded intelligence, which is DNA and RNA. So the DNA holds the divine encryption and the DNA RNA, and it also has this storage ability with memory and adaptability. Okay, so you're basically pulling memories from your ancestral lines, not just yours, but your ancestral lines. And then when you have children, you're passing that memory on to them. Other intelligence is water. Water holds consciousness and memory keeping and shape shifting. It can shape shift. So if you speak kindly to your water, or you give it good vibes, and it's going to remember it. And they've done studies on this, so I'm not just talking crazy. Water holds consciousness. And so the water that you drink is very important. That's why I put some salt in my water. I purify it. I have my, I don't think they make Pro Pures anymore, but I have a Pro Pure that I got, gosh, I think it's probably in like 2015 or something like that, 2016. But I've had this Pro Pure forever, and that's how I drink my water. And it actually tastes a lot better than tap water. Not that our tap water is super crazy as it could be in some other areas, but I prefer not to drink the tap water. I like to have my nice silver impregnated water. It's gone through some filtration. But that water keeps the consciousness and stores memory into it. And your body holds water in it. So just, think about the water that you're taking in, and then think about how you're speaking to your water, because it's holding consciousness, it's holding memory in it as well. And we talked about the bones, which are the story keepers and the vibrational archives of ancestry. And then the last one, the biological code, where life's embedded intelligence is stored in, is in the blood. So the blood is this covenant carrier, and it's a magnetic conductor of your soul force. All right. I went on a little rabbit hole, as you guys might know, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, tell me about Jesus and the blood and the bread and the blood." Because back in the day, I don't have a lot of juice on my phone, but back in the day, I remember reading about the French Revolution, and during the revolution, they were unable to get food. And so they went to the cemetery and they dug up the bones and they ground them down to make bread. Okay. And then in Jack and the Beanstalk, what does he say? Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. It be he alive or be he dead. I'll grind his bones to make my bread. These things I remember, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. But what if Jesus, okay, this is allegedly, this is a theory. What if Jesus, when he said that, eat of this bread, what does he say? When Jesus said he was the bread and the blood, was the bread the bones part? Because bones used to be ground and added to bread, or used to make bread. I don't know. It's just where my mind goes sometimes. And then the blood is that covenant carrier. So the bread was the story keeper. You're eating of that, and you're bringing it into your own with paramagnetic skeletons. You're eating that bread and you're drinking the blood, and you're storing the covenant and the story of Jesus in your system when you participate in the what's it called? When you when you eat the blood and drink when you eat the bread and drink the blood. Good for calcium. Yeah. Lots of calcium, lots of phosphate in that. Anyways, that's my theory. I don't know if it's true. This is where my mind goes. So, subtle realms and interfaces. So, non material technologies humans have always had access to, aka metaverse or dreaming, which is this astral interface that we can kind of, people think it's in our subconscious. All right. You can also get downloads. That's another interface, another metaverse that you're connecting with. Intuition or gnosis, just direct knowing beyond any reasoning. It doesn't seem reasonable for you to know certain things, but it comes to you through intuition. It comes to you through just knowing or gnosis. And it doesn't make any sense on why you would know that. It doesn't make any sense sometimes, like all of these downloads that I'm getting. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do with this? Sometimes I'm like, how am I going to arrange and make this make sense for the people that are listening to, my streams, the people that are connecting with this? Like, how are they going, like, it's beyond reason. How are they going to take that? But it's because, like, I've asked to safely and curiously go into these different realms, go and interface with these different aspects of what our human intelligence is capable of. Show me the truth. Show me so I can understand and give me the understanding behind it. Give me the wisdom, you know, send me the data. I'm ready for it. That's where you get that direct knowing beyond reasoning, is having that access to the wisdom. Sacred geometry, which are patterns woven into forms. So think of the flower of life or the golden ratio, and other, like, I like to think of Romanesca broccoli. It kind of looks really fractal. It's kind of crazy. But then, flowers, they all look they're all the same. When it's like a certain flower, it has 5 petals. All of them have 5 petals. If it's a clover, you're like sitting there like, am I going to find the 4-leaf clover? So you're like looking in to see if you can find it. But sacred geometry is kind of everywhere in our society or in our world. And then the other subtle realm or interfaces are time. So time doesn't always have to be linear, and it isn't. It can be cyclical, so it has this rhythm to it as well. Planetary alignments, all the stars move in a certain pattern, all the planets kind of move in a certain alignment. And then there's also this memory of eternity. It's almost like we have this curiosity towards it, and we're trying to figure out how to access it again. And then finally, some sacramental practices, which are some human tech that we use as a divine toolkit that is a part of our intelligent design, is you have rituals or altar building, which are anchoring energy fields. So think about if you're, having a burn pile on your property, that could be seen as kind of this altar building, even though you may not even think of it that way. But if you think about it the next time you do it, and you kind of notice the subtleties that happen with that, you might agree a little bit more. Because I noticed it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I feel different. But the other things that humans have always done is like a prayer, incantation, or song. So spoken vibration in order to align with the source. And there might be certain tones or certain frequencies that align with you a little bit more. Dance and movement is another sacramental practice that human technology uses. And this is a somatic alchemy. This is using your body as a temple. And then the other thing is plant medicine. So unlocking the encoded wisdom of flora. And a lot of people do this with medicine. A lot of our medicines do come from the flora of our, the floral kingdom, and there's a lot of wisdom encoded into it, and so that is another sacramental practice. So really, technology is not this new invention. Okay, we've always had technology. We just may have forgotten it, and so this is your call to remember it. But I'm gonna go. I'm at 2%. I love you guys so much. Thank you for hanging out. I hope this was interesting to you. Please give me your comments, or I like to get a little bit of something back so that I know if it's landing or if I'm just like talking crazy. But this was a great stream. I thought it would be good to remind, to continue from yesterday, because yesterday was there was a lot of breakup in the technology. It was not smooth yesterday. So today it seems to be smoother. Thank you guys. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Tim, for joining and sticking around. Always interesting. Yes. You're seeing a little bit of my brain. My brain not on drugs, but all right. Well, you guys have a wonderful evening. I hope that you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you guys later. Ciao.